dude. How about that? Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell. I'd appreciate it majorly. So, just some some housekeeping on the continuing case of the two missing kids, J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and, there's a couple of different stories out there. One about a little bit more specifics about Charles Vallow's life insurance policy, that he changed the beneficiary from Lori Vallow to his sister, Kay Vallow-Woodcock. And so there's a little bit on that. There was a custody hearing, or something like that in Rexburg recently in the last day or so, that Kay Vallow-Woodcock and Larry Woodcock attended. They're the grandparents, according to reports, the biological grandparents of J.J. Vallow, and they've filed for custody of their grandson, given all the circumstances. But I've said on a number of videos that I have, there's tons of people that have been, had a lot of input on this, lots of different family members, and it continues to grow. It continues to expand. The number of people that seem to be, voicing their opinion grows. And this is just like the kitchen sink, dude, method. And at this stage, because what the hell, And, so they were in court, but it was supposed to be a quick hearing. It turned out, according to Eric Grossarth, I think that's who's reporting on this. He is. It lasted like 2 hours. He spoke to them very quickly. They gave just a statement. They have an attorney, and that's all they really provided. He asked, can you shed anything on the criminal investigation so far? Because two detectives reportedly entered the courtroom, but it was a closed hearing that lasted like 2 hours, which would be unusual, I think, is what Eric Grossarth was suggesting for a fair, a custody hearing. So, and that's pretty much the extent of that report. And then I saw a report about the coroner for Tammy Daybell. Is that this? No. Yeah, that's this. And it's actually a different coroner that I had looked into previously, because and I don't have the two counties up here right now. You have two counties, that border each other, and where Tammy Daybell and Chad Daybell live, they live on the southern border of Fremont County. Okay, that's why, and then there's Rexburg, which is Madison County. Okay, so the Madison County Police Department is basically involved in this case as it relates to the missing children. The Fremont County Sheriff's Department is involved in the case as it relates to the suspicious death of Tammy Daybell. So, I had looked up the Madison County coroner and looked at him in a previous video and discussed that. But it's actually a different coroner, and her name's Brenda, and basically, Len Humphreys, the sheriff of the Fremont County Sheriff's Department, basically sort of disputed some of the reports out there that the family, the Daybell family, I assume her children, not just Chad, the report were that they refused an autopsy. Okay, and Len Humphreys is disputing that to some extent, and and that's what this article's about. I'm going to go through each one, so I don't want to do the whole thing. This is just this is what's coming. So here's a couple things in this report from Lauren Steinbrecher from Fox 13 Salt Lake City. I don't know if she's kind of taken over the story a little bit from Adam Hurwitz or what. I mean, Adam Hurwitz does cover a fair amount of stuff in Salt Lake City. Is a big market, whatever. But she's reported on this recently, and it's her report. And in besides the fact that, it's about that the fact that Charles Vallow changed the beneficiary to his life insurance policy prior to his death. But they speak to one of the two attorneys that he met with regarding filing for divorce and all the stuff that all the stories that were given about Lori being a doomsday cult person, all this other stuff. Okay, we don't need to go over that over and over. So they spoke to one of those attorneys as it relates to changing the the beneficiary of his life insurance policy. I mean, it's kind of weird how, the story says that the attorney advised him to change the beneficiary on his life insurance policy. He wouldn't, he's going to his attorney, reportedly telling his attorney or these attorneys, that he thinks his wife is going to kill him or his wife and his brothers are going to kill him. So his attorney advised him to change the beneficiary on his life insurance policy. He needed his attorney to advise him to do that. He wouldn't have thought of that himself if he thinks his wife is going to kill him. I'm just saying, it's just sort of ridiculous. Okay, all of it. And, this one attorney they spoke to is right there. I think his last name is Larson. He's also in this video here. This is the previous video where, it basically is the story about his attorneys said that he predicted his own death, and they spoke to both of these attorneys in this interview. Okay, and I talked about this in a previous interview, but this time they just spoke to Larson. I can't remember who the other. It's his firm. It's this dude's firm, and he's just works there. He's one of the attorneys. It's a family law firm. What's the dude's name? Ellsworth Family Law. So I assume this dude's name is Ellsworth, but he's not in this most recent report. He's sweating bullets in this interview. Okay,
He said, I want to make sure that everyone knows that if something happens to me, Lori and Alex did it.
Last July, Charles came to pick up
To me, everyone knows. Sure.
Attorneys say he feared for his life.
He said, I want to make sure that everyone knows that if something happens to me, Lori and Alex did it.
Last July, Charles came to pick up JJ.
In this report, though, they only speak to the other individual. Okay.
Known as a love man, Tyler feared for his life.
This guy, Larson. It's not terribly important, but and by the way, I've seen the Facebook video of that interview. It's just Justin Lum and his cameraman. There's no lights there or anything. Okay, to produce heat. So then it goes on to talk to Kay Vallow just briefly. She, they have her on camera. I think some kind of Skype as well. I think this is a Skype. I'll play portions of it. And she has something that she says that Lori Vallow sent her a text with a picture of the beneficiary change form, and says something like, no 5 kids and no money, something or other. And that too, believe me, I have some remarks for that. Let's just play a little bit of this and so you get an idea of what's in this report, and then move on to basically the coroner of Fremont County.
Because I know she'll be able to take care of him and
Lori, which he says Charles did. And the attorney also told Charles to remove Lori as a beneficiary on his $1 million life insurance policy. Came to his lawyers with concerns about his wife Lori Vallow and Lori's brother Alex Cox. The Arizona attorney told me on the phone Charles feared for his safety, so he told Charles to get an order of protection against Lori, which he says Charles did. And the attorney also told Charles to remove Lori as a beneficiary on his $1 million life insurance policy.
He said, no, I want Kay, my sister, to be the beneficiary because if I die, I want her to get the money so that she can take care of JJ because I know she'll be able to take care of him and the financial stress of having a child with, special needs such as JJ.
JJ is Charles and Lori's adopted son who has autism. F. Taylor Larson says Charles didn't tell Lori he changed his policy. Lori's brother Alex Cox shot and killed Charles in Arizona 5 months after Charles met with his lawyers. Police didn't arrest Alex because he claimed self-defense. Kay Woodcock, JJ's grandmother, tells Fox 10 Phoenix that soon after Charles died, Lori sent her a text upon learning Kay was the beneficiary and not Lori.
She sent me a picture of the change of beneficiary form, and she wrote a note underneath it, and it went something like 5 kids and no money, and his sister gets everything.
Lori moved to Rexburg, Idaho. JJ and Lori's daughter...
Okay, so, 5 kids and no money and his sister gets everything. his sister, Kay Vallow, in previous reports, she has said that her brother was well off, okay, that he was the golden goose. That was her words, for Lori Vallow, that he was a successful businessman and that, he was a payday to her, But that's not what it sounds like there, because basically the only thing he had financially left after his death was a life insurance benefit, okay? So that seems to be, she said that the house she was staying in, that where he was shot and killed, that he was paying for that house, okay? Or she said which he paid for. It almost made it sound like he owned the house, but he didn't own the house. Maybe he was paying the rent, but it doesn't matter. He had no money, okay? And the only thing he left behind was a life insurance policy that he left to her instead of Lori. And Lori and Kay are, at each other in this, Did I say that I that everyone's giving their version of events and that there's not a single person that I've seen telling the truth at all as yet? Because if I didn't say that, let me say it now, all right? And forgive the sarcasm, but it's just getting utterly ridiculous. And incidentally, if he had no money, all right, the only reason you don't get divorced, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because you do have money. And, if you get divorced, it's going to have to get, divided up. A lot of times the wife will get even more than half, whatever. But if you don't have any money, then there's no reason not to get a divorce, So can't be really a claim for not getting divorced. Believe me, it's all baloney, totally. And, so on to the coroner, and the sheriff, that's the coroner right there. Her name is Brenda Dye. She just ran for coroner in 2018. She's an EMT, a lifelong EMT, and she has been for years. So she only has a high school degree, but she's been an experienced EMT for, I don't know what it is, 19 years or something. 20 plus years. I've been an EMT in Fremont County for 20 plus years. I'm a compassionate person, whatever. This is her, her information as she's running for that position, county coroner in Fremont County, which she won. And this is from April 24th, 2018. I don't know when the actual election was or who was running against her. It doesn't matter. She won. So, and in this article here, it just says that, Sheriff Humphreys was basically disputing the previous report that the family didn't want an autopsy. And he says that's not how it went. And yet Fremont County Sheriff Len Humphreys said that information was incorrect. Okay? I know that was a recording that came out of our office. You have to understand that was a dispatcher who was very new and didn't have the complete information, Humphreys said. She did not have all the facts. According to Humphreys, one of his officers first responded to a call about Tammy's death, October 19th. All right. And the officer went to Daybell's home in Salem, examined the body, then called Fremont County Coroner Brenda Dye. Dye soon arrived at the home as well. It was Dye's decision to not order an autopsy. Humphreys said an autopsy decision would not have been left up to the family. There wasn't any information or any indication that anything was out of line, Humphreys said. Dye then wrote a death certificate, the details of which has not been released. Dye was elected to her position of coroner in November 2018. She has a high school education and works as an advanced emergency medical technician at Fremont County EMS. Okay, so he's saying that wouldn't have been it was the coroner's decision. It wasn't the family's decision, but it's absolutely ridiculous that, it's phrased in that way. It's so disappointing. Any common sense individual can say in a matter of seconds that, why didn't the family request an autopsy? Why didn't the family, my mother died at 49 years old, I would want to know exactly why. Maybe they do know exactly why, but I would want an autopsy too. I just would. Okay, it's ridiculous. All right, and so similar to the coroner and in Madison County. I tried to look into the coroner of Fremont County, Brenda Dye, and I can't say that I found a tremendous amount. Other than I noticed that and whether or not they're connected to the Latter-day Saints Church, which I think everybody that lives in this area, in this part of the country, many people are members of the Latter-day Saints Church. So that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily prove anything. Okay. It's just so unusual, dude. You have a 49-year-old woman who dies in her sleep, supposedly from natural causes because she went to bed with a bad cough the night before. And that very morning, it's the death certificate. Dye wrote a death certificate, the details of which have not been released. It was Dye's decision not to order an autopsy. She was buried 3 days later in a different state in Springville, Utah. It's so fishy, dude. So, but Brenda Dye, I don't know if she's a member of the Latter-day Saints Church that I was looking at earlier. The one that's actually, it's just south of the Fremont County border, where the Latter-day Saints Church that was like 2.3 miles south of where Tammy Daybell lives. I don't know if Chad and Tammy Daybell belong to that church, the one I was looking at before, the one that is super close, literally walking distance, less than walking distance to the corner of Madison County. His house is like right there. I don't know if Tammy and Chad went to that church or a different church in Island Park, a Latter-day Saints Church, which I don't know if she's a member of it, but her husband is, and he's basically, I think, a leader there, okay? And again, that doesn't mean anything. But, I don't know. I noticed on her Facebook page, everybody's taking their friends off. I've done it myself, okay? But everyone does that, and it's real cute. A lot of people do that. It's not a big deal. But, I just noticed that her husband and her, they're not friends on Facebook anymore. Even though they're kids, her husband has his kids as his friends, and her kids, I think, have her as her friend. They do. But the husband and wife aren't friends on Facebook anymore. And to the best of my knowledge, they're still married, And so, I don't know. It just kind of seemed a little weird to me. So, this is actually a story from 2015. And it's about a bad car accident in Fremont County where a sheriff's deputy and another individual, and I think more than one person, but two persons, a sheriff's deputy and another individual, Rance Dye, Brenda Dye's husband, were seriously hurt, and they had to be airlifted out of there. Okay, and it's pretty much insignificant. That has nothing to do necessarily with what I'm talking about, other than, kind of what's said in the article is that, Rance Dye was friends with the deputies in the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. That's not highly unusual. His wife is an EMT. They do tons of work with police. So, granted, but still, So, this is basically just a comment from one of the deputies in that officer saying that, this situation was different because it was family, basically, that were seriously hurt. And he's talking about both the deputy and Rance Dye. They're friends, It says, I've been on bad incidents before, but I've never really known who they were, Overton said. Overton is the deputy. Deputy Howard Overton was responding to a vehicle accident involving a deer near the turnout of Howard Springs in Island Park. These two individuals, the deputy that was hurt and Rance Dye, were supposedly moving the deer carcass off the road when they were struck in a collision that one car hit another or something like that. So I've been on bad incidents before, but I've never really known who they were, Overton said. It's a little bit different when Mr. Dye is my friend and Deputy Powell is my partner. It's something that we are dealing with right now. Fremont County Sheriff Len Humphreys said he was proud of how his crew performed and that he was thankful for all who responded. It's hit home because we are a pretty tight family here, and we know each other on a first name basis, Humphreys said. You know, so I'd be curious to know if the person who is, you know, one of his officers first responded to a call about Tammy's death on October 19th. I don't know. I mean, is it possible that is, you know, Deputy Howard Overton or this other deputy, Powell? I don't know. I mean, it's probably a small sheriff's office. Who knows? So, you know, but like I said, I was just trying to see if they're, you know, if they're heavily involved in Latter-day Saints, and it appears that they are, you know. I mean, I think everybody in that part of the country maybe is. I mean, this is an article from Yellowstone Crowds Packed Latter-day Saints Chapel in Island Park. Okay, there's a small chapel there, which is this right here. All right, the Church of Latter-day Saints in Island Park, Idaho. Here's some photos of it. Some of the photos are in that article right there. And it's talking about 3,000 vacationers, you know, who were vacationing to Yellowstone Park, Mormons, that wanted to go to church, too, at the same time while they were vacationing on Sunday. So they came to this small chapel, or this chapel. I mean, it seems like a fairly large church. And they overwhelmed it because there's 3,000 of them. You know, and this is a while back. It's from 2009. But it says, Rance Dye, Brenda Dye's husband, who conducted the meeting and has lived in the Last Chance area for 36 years, said Sundays was one of the largest crowds he's seen. And that such turnouts make us feel welcome here. So, you know, I'm assuming he's a leader in the church if he's conducting the meeting, you know, where 3,200 Mormons come to visit his church, you know, who were visiting Yellowstone Park. And, you know, that's pretty much the extent of it. You know my theory, dude. My theory is these people fake their deaths, and not absolutely positive of that, but that's my theory. And I would say I feel very comfortable that some of them did. And whether or not Tammy Daybell was terminally ill and this was just a way to get paid on life insurance too, it's possible. But if you forced me to guess it, I'd say they're all three alive. Charles Vallow, Alex Cox, and Tammy Daybell too. You know, and you know my other theory that somehow this was involved. You know, that some of these people were involved in the massacre in northern Mexico on November 4th. I've gone over why I thought that. What you see in the surveillance footage of the Rexburg storage facility where Lori Vallow rented a unit, and she's there on multiple occasions, some occasions with Alex Cox, and sometimes Alex Cox is by himself, and some another time he's there with another man, bringing out the large tote with something hanging over it, you know, which to me looks to be like an actual seat of a car, of an SUV, in my opinion, probably a Suburban, Chevy Suburban, and a large tire coming in and out. And I was saying that I thought, you know, those were they hijacked a drug smuggling operation in northern Mexico where the Latter-day Saints community there was involved in some bad stuff. They knew they'd be transporting drugs, even though it was women and children, because that's maybe how they normally did it, because that would be the perfect front. Nobody would suspect it. And, you know, but they had to have something to replace the seat that they'd be ripping out of or taking out of this Chevy Suburban that had the drugs stashed in it. They had to have a tire to replace the tire they would take off the Chevy Suburban that would have drugs stashed in it. Otherwise, the authorities would clearly say, like, where's the seat? Where's the tire? And they would know they have to investigate further. They would know something's up. And it was probably a drug operation. And that's the story there, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.